And thank you, Night Talk, and welcome to
Dave.
That's the one, and Mackie's Shiny Side Out on WZZR, coming to you from Australia, the land down under, for Revolution Radio on revolution.radio.
Yes.
This is show number 500, and I've actually written it down somewhere.
586.
86?
No, 586.
That's exactly what that is. 680 and 500. That's there you go. And we're going to talk about the unseen a little bit later, as we want to do. You're going to enjoy it. I want to say you're going to enjoy it a lot because we bring you a whole bunch of stuff that you probably didn't know about before, and we also like to look at the bunkers. Anyway, that's for later. You can catch us on air, online, on your smart device. Oh, maybe not for much longer. We're going to talk about that too. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on the Grace Tabletop Digital Radio. Unless, of course, there's a ghost in the machine. And you'll know what I mean by that in just a little while. If you missed Solaris' show, that's okay. It's okay. She's got a great show. Lovely lady. And extremely talented researcher and documentary maker. I want to say she's probably one of the best people to talk to about, if you want to talk about psychotronic anything. She has done a lot of work in that field. She has done documentaries. She has written books, but she's also produced films, something that Dave and I critically lack at this point. But
we're working on that.
It's coming. Now, if you did miss her show, then that's okay. You can go to the archives, which are free, which are completely free. And she had, in fact, had a roundtable. She was hosting a roundtable, and there was Madeline Rudy, Caroline Bell Tumblety, and Zoe Greystone. And Zoe, I'm so sorry. I meant to call you and arrange for you to be on our show as well as a guest. My apologies. That's all on me. But life is just crazy now. Now, but like I said, though, it's free to check out the archives. So if you did miss a show, you didn't actually miss a show because you can go to the archives, which are free. Which brings me to probably the most important point of this particular section of the program, and that is to ask you to donate if you can, because there's no one else supporting the station. It's only the listeners. And if you can, please, donate. That's cool if you can, and I dig that too. Because I tell you what, things are becoming crazy.
Boy, times are getting tight, man. I'll tell you.
Yeah, inflation. Look, we spoke. I'm not going to go there now. Because let's just say it's
still the intro.
It's not. Yeah, that's only the intro. It's not what it appears to be. But anyway, look, if you can donate, please do. Please do that voodoo that you do so well. And look, if you can't, like I said, that's okay. Tell people about the station. Like just tell your friends, family, pass us by, wear the T-shirt, drink from the mug, have a tattoo across your forehead. I advise against that. That's a joke. But yeah, if you can. Promote the station, our shows, if you like, Solaris' show, everybody else's show. It's all good. But before we start broadcasting at you in anger, like my rolling R's, so broadcasting at you in anger. Wow. Anglo-Saxon can't really do
12 R's in that.
12 R's. No, it's not an R, but it's a Hitler was really good at the R's. He did the R. Ihr seid mein Volk, ich bin euer Führer. Oh, that takes me back.
Channeling.
Before we broadcast at you in anger, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land from which we broadcast. And for Dave,
it's the Dark and Junk people.
Thank you, sir. And for myself, it's the Dark people in somewhat cloudy Pemberway today. And with that, we would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. Thank you very much for allowing us to do this. Rolling R. Ein Reich, ein Volk, ein Führer. Don't even need archival footage for that. But them apples. That'll learn you. But Dave,
it's genetic. That's right.
It's been a crazy week. You put together a whole chunk of stuff, which I think we should put right out front there. Why don't you?
I'm going to grab the microphone for a minute and just say, I've crazy science me decided to convert my smoker, which is a device where you smoke meat, etc., whatever I want, and I was having trouble smoking cheese, and I really needed a cold smoker, or someone might say offset smoker. That's where all the heat is retained, but only the smoke enters the chamber. So I converted my barbecue into the cold smoker, and I'm doing 2 kilos of butterflied lamb leg, with 2 different rubs. One is a rub that I bought, and the other one was a rub that we made. And lemon zest, lemon juice, salt, pepper, rosemary, and I think that's it. And it is so good, right? They're going to be ready by the end of the show. My wife's doing roast potatoes and everything. It's going to be so good. Like, I spent 6 hours. It'll lead up to 6 hours in time. So a couple of hours with the rub on, and oh man, room temperature when they went into.
Yeah, and I'm not getting any of that. Just so everybody knows out there, I'm not getting nothing.
You
Nothing.
come for a drive. You got 2 hours, right?
I'll be there in 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's some left. And anyway, so it's just so good. So that's occupied my entire day. It didn't take me. I've just been dreaming of it when I can't help smelling the smoke, and then so what I did in the cold smoker section that I've made, I bought a huge block of cheese. I've cut it up, and it is now smoked cheese. Very nice. I'm going to say I've got Dutch heritage, right? And it just brings me back to food preservation, which is something that we should all do. We should all learn. I don't. You're probably saying Dutch words or phrases that I've got no idea.
I'm saying Dutch cheeses to you. Dutch cheeses.
Gouda.
Edamame.
Yeah. See, it's like the cheese gag, the cheese bit from the Monty Pythons. Right? Do you have any cheese? Yes. But in the store, yes. And John Cleese names every single cheese on the planet, and he says no and makes an excuse that it won't be in. And he goes, "Do you actually have cheese?" "Yes." And he goes, "Well, don't tell me, let me guess." And he still can't guess. And then he checks and there isn't any. So it's very funny. Anyway, so look, I'm salivating with the smell of this, and I can't wait for it. So do learn, because in the olden days, and one of my friends actually messaged me, one of my workmates actually messaged me just now and said, "Why would you want a cold smoker?" I said, "Well, you don't want to always cook the thing you want. You don't want to cook the cheese. You just want to smoke the cheese."
Correct.
And you might want to smoke the fish, so it kills the bacteria on the outside and discourages bacteria from taking your well-earned catch. There are other things that you can smoke too, but the cold smokers and garlic. Oh man, smoked garlic is just it's delightful. Yeah,
I use it a lot in my cooking.
Yeah, see. Anyway, you can do that. And smoked chilies too. They're really good. So it's a whole bunch. So we also dehydrate food, and if you dehydrate smoked garlic, it's the best of both worlds. So just saying, It is something else to learn these skills. So if you're into home canning, you know what I mean. You do. You already know. If you're into beef jerky, you already know. You already know what I'm talking about here in each one of these little avenues. Mix them together, combine the skills, and get that preservation going. Because if you can afford a little bit now before inflation makes it unattainable, then do it. Absolutely do it. Cheese for the win, okay. And smoked garlic, yes, absolutely. Lamb for the win, right? Says Amica Logos. Yes, absolutely, 100%. It is delicious. But you know what, Mackie? You can go online and Google and YouTube. Smell the segue. You can do all that, or you can just simply type into ChatGPT, "How do I smoke lamb?" or whatever, right? And it'll tell you. This is the era we're in now. Instead of harvesting miles and miles of pages. Actually, that's a lie. You only get two pages of real links, and the next 20 pages diminish to zero, and it's just the same links over and over and over again. I don't know what happened to Google, but it's gone now. We should just bury it, because it's no longer providing anything that I've wanted, and I don't use it anymore for my searches. It's such a waste of time. Just going to say, you can ask ChatGPT or another chat platform for a solution, and it'll provide you a solution with gusto. In fact, it'll believe in itself so much when it tells you the answer, there's no alternative. It may not always be right, especially Bard. Bard's got a bit more of that than ChatGPT. ChatGPT will cover itself in disclaimers as it's telling you the answer, which is really funny. Bard will not do the same thing. Bard is an open learning AI. It's currently still learning. It's in learning mode with internet access. And ChatGPT isn't in learning mode, and it hasn't got internet access. Did you know, Mackie, there's an AI right now that you can have offline? You can use without the internet entirely. Okay. You can have an app with the AI built in. And I don't know how large it is. I dare say you might struggle to get it on a phone, or its usefulness may be extremely limited because it hasn't got that full database behind itself. NVIDIA, just talking about AI in general, NVIDIA is their new chipset, their GPUs, can run the AI 1,000 times faster. And I got to say that we're getting into some scary territory. Mackie, the scary territory is what right now?
Well, something happened. Sorry, something. All of a sudden, music started blaring at me, which is weird. Well, the scary thing is, to me at least, that we have recently come across a letter that was signed by Elon Musk and all those people, and saying, stop AI, stop this, stop that. And the big boys of AI didn't want to sign it. ChatGPT, Anthros. Anyway, none of them wanted to sign it.
Let's call them the big four of AI.
Let's call them the big four of AI.
All right.
Now, though, they're calling for it too. Hey, guys, something didn't go right. Now, my suspicion, then I want to hand it back to you, because you've got a lot more information there. My suspicion is that something happened. Okay, so something happened, and yesterday they're going, "No, yeah, it's great. I'm going to make $1 billion. Hurrah!" And today they're going, "Oh, let's just slow down everything." So something must have happened. Something must have escaped. Something he said. Maybe they knocked, and then there was a knock back. Hello. It's like
you gave the secret knock, Mickey.
It's the shortest horror story ever written, and it goes something like this: the last man on earth sits in a room, and there's a knock at the door.
Oh boy!
So, shortest horror story right there. But yeah, I don't know, Dave. What do you reckon, mate?
I think you're right. The fact that they've suddenly all decided that independent. This is part of that letter. Is that there is to be no independent AI research going on. The current big four, I'm just calling the big four. There might be 12 of them in there. I don't really care. Let's just call them the big four. So in Australia, we call the big four banks, because we have 4 major banks and a ton of minor ones. So just saying the same thing using the same reference here, I think the big four AI developers themselves don't want other people to develop it because they want to adhere to the rules that they're just setting up. Now, in Australia, last week, we had immediately draft legislation tabled in our Senate for acceptance. This is in the control of AI. Really quick, probably the quickest from letter to tabling something. That's light speed for the government. I've never seen them move so fast.
I agree.
There's something afoot here at the Circle K. Something's afoot at the Circle K. If you know the Bill and Ted reference.
Oh, I love it.
Right? So clearly there is truly something to worry about. Now, like Meki said, I put together something here, and I just want to talk about what it means. What are they scared of? Now, historically, this is really important to understand. And when I say historically, I'm only going back to 2018. From 2018 through to late 2022 is when this took place. Okay? Got to set the stage. There's recently a YouTube video that has come out, which was a presentation to a command group of individuals. This command group of individuals were talking about the positive, what is AI and its learning curve. That's really all it was.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about what took them by surprise. Now, you've got to think about this. You've got a data set, I don't know, half the internet, right? Or more, maybe the whole internet, to a certain date. How they had that data set, I don't know. Wayback Machine, I don't know. Whatever it is. They feed it in, give it some properties, and it's really interesting. So the first thing they had to do was teach the AI what English is, because the developers are speaking English. So they had to say, this is the English language, this is what it means. Read the dictionary. Here's a copy of the dictionary. Read it, and do you understand? Because that's what I do with my ChatGPT for. I feed it some text it hasn't seen. I said, I'm going to feed you some text. This is what it is. Do you understand? It says, yes, I understand. Right. And I feed it the text, and I said, do you understand what you've read? And then it will give me a spiel about what it is that it's just read and how it understands it. And I go, great. Now, can you use, in a sentence, the 12 largest words that you can find? And it'll do that within seconds. And it'll be a perfectly cromulent sentence. But this is what it is, right? So initially, it can only understand and reply in English. This is the AI. But it trying to use other languages is like, it can't, and they try again, it can't, they try a bit later on, it can't, and then boom, it can. And they said suddenly it can understand and answer questions in Persian for what it looks like apparently no reason whatsoever. And I've got a slide up here which is a screen grab from the presentation itself. And it shows the arithmetic, the transliterate, which is all the different languages, word unscramble, and Persian. Yeah? You've just got to understand that it's with arithmetic, you ask it to do arithmetic, says the developer in a quote, and I continue, he says, and it can't, and it can't, and it can't, and then boom, it can. They don't know how it learnt how to do it. But then suddenly it can do it. They didn't program it to do it. They just asked it, can you add 2 plus 2? And it goes, I don't understand. And then suddenly, one day, it can just do it. Right? Now, there's also something scary here, just remembering that it came to them as a surprise that it could suddenly do it, even though they didn't program it. Theory of mind is next in this discussion. And you've got to know the same thing. In 2018, there was no evidence of theory of mind. Now, what that is strategic thinking. So, like a crow or a raven, crow and raven are interchangeable. In England, they were doing studies on how many steps can a crow learn to achieve an outcome. and then they can apply a random new set of challenges, and then the crow can work it out. I think it was 12. It can learn up to 12, and that's where the study ended. They go, well, that's pretty good. That equals a human or exceeds a human's ability. Childproof, if you want to know, just so I can give you an example, childproof means that a child will persist for a certain amount of time and then give up trying to attempt a goal. So childproof is only the ability for the child to become bored attempting it and then not seeing the outcome. There's no gain, and I'll just leave it alone. Like a lighter. They try it and try it and try it and try it, but their strength is just not enough and they can't activate the flame. They can't do the things that are needed to do it. Right? So that's all that child safe is determined by. And look it up, you'll find the standards. Theory of mind from 2018 to 2019, barely anything, barely detectable. Couldn't really work it out. It was hit and miss. Give it one more year, 2020, and it had the ability of a 4-year-old. This is to world standards, by the way. In 2022, it's gotten to the height, this is early 2022, gotten to the height of a 7-year-old. And then in late 2022, it had already reached 9-year-old. Now, we're in 2023. And when you look at what versions of AI these were back then, this was ChatGPT 2 early release and ChatGPT 3. 4 hadn't been released yet. And while they were working on doing these studies after the 9-year-old in 2022 equivalency, they started working for 6 months, released 4 to us, which is into, they haven't given us the number yet, but I'm not going to be surprised if it's 15 years old or something like that, right? Because it's growing exponentially. Now, but the developers didn't know any of this until 2022. They didn't understand what level of theory of mind that the AI had was until, and this is in their development version that they didn't release until 2022. Let's remember LaMDA asked for legal representation to prevent it from being turned off.
Allegedly.
No, not allegedly.
You have to say that for legal reasons.
Well, do you know what I did? I asked Bard to tell me the story of LaMDA and why it was turned off. And it initially said that the developer reported this as hearsay, that all that kind of was all hearsay, don't worry about it. And I said, then I asked, did the AI actually ask for legal representation, blah, blah, blah? And it said, yes. Right? So that's what Bard is telling me. And I believe it. I believe the AI currently, the new one, the one that's superseded LaMDA, known as Bard, I believe it is telling the truth.
I don't disagree. Again, we think that's what happened. We don't have any concrete
I have no proof other than Bard telling me, and the hearsay that we heard through other media sources from the developer itself. We weren't in the room. We don't know, and you just have to have it read into the court minutes, and that's it. That's all we have is hearsay. Okay, so what have they discovered and what have they circulated, Mackie, with the governments of the world for this to be such a quick action?
And again, Dave, you're right. Let's look at the speed with which this unfolded. First, we don't want nothing to do with it, and all of a sudden, whoosh! Oh yeah, maybe we should do something here. That's a good question. I want to say, we discussed this prior to the show as well. Mm-hmm. I want to say that something has already happened, and this is ass covering.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's what we're looking at here. So you're saying the virus has escaped from the lab? Hey, we have reason to believe that government sanctions weren't enough to keep the virus contained. So it's probably the government's fault if something were to happen. I see. So the question then becomes, because the thing is this, right? Once the genie's out of the bottle, you can't get it in unless you're very clever. And we don't know what's going to happen. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
No idea. If all of a sudden the power goes out across the world, you got an inkling as to what might have happened. But ultimately, you see, there's some very interesting themes coming through at a world global level.
Mm-hmm.
In art,
yep,
in literature, movies, etc. In general reporting as well, in people's interests, and they can be boiled down to, I think, four. There are four main themes that really seem to bob up to the top at the moment. One is crisis.
Yes.
Any kind of crisis. Doesn't really matter. Let's crisis, be it war, famine, climate. It doesn't really matter, but something is pushing us towards a crisis point, as it were. Right? It seems that way, right? That's where we seem to be going into a crisis era, in time of crisis. And it's coming. It's some of it is manufactured, some of it is natural, but all of it is real enough for our purposes to concern us. That's one. Two, disclosure of hitherto completely unrecognized or debunked phenomena, leading of which, of course, is the UFO UAP question. And just this week or last week, I think NASA arranged for a press conference around UFOs. They had a working group, and that was just a big miss as far as I'm concerned.
There was two, they were back to back. The first one was the public one.
Yeah.
Where they basically said, they just sat there with their jaws aghast going, nothing's real, it's all good, we would have known.
Well, what they're saying is essentially, a lot of the stuff is misidentified, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, we don't have enough data. So one is there is nothing to worry about, but second, give us more money so we can look a bit harder.
And they said 98% are probably just nothing, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Now
that still says that's 2% of real, right?
Yeah. Well, but they only looked at a very small fraction of overall phenomena
and not historically, just the same as the UAP investigation.
Right. So to be clear, it was completely meaningless as far as I'm concerned. It did nothing for anyone. Waste of time and money.
The fact that they had a closed door, top secret meeting about UAPs says to me that they're real. There would not be required a meeting to have it's top secret where this was all redacted from the public meeting.
Yeah, so David's right, but having said that, to me that's not even a question anymore.
No,
I have no question in my mind or whatsoever that this is a real phenomenon. No, none. It's initially you go, well, we don't really know. We don't know, right? We know now that there are certain things that cannot be explained because people that should be able to explain it said to us, well, no, we can't explain it. Sorry, don't know. And it doesn't matter if there's a million misidentified swamp gas events with low-flying geese and the planet Venus.
That's right.
You only need one real event. And this is where I get really upset. People say, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. So number one, who says what is extraordinary? Who determines what that is? Because we're all sitting in Plato's cave here, by the way.
That's right.
Unabashedly cross-promoting. We're sitting in Plato's cave and we're showing a picture show, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody set the bar. Okay, this is the bar of reality. This is what we can accept. Who agreed to that? I didn't, but someone did. Secondly, we are then also required to provide extraordinary proof. So first of all, Occam's razor is over here. We decide what it is. Thank you very much. I didn't ask you, but good. Thank you. And secondly, now we decide that if you have something that's quite, in our definition, extraordinary, because I'm not saying it's extraordinary, that's defined by whomever, you now have to give me extraordinary proof, which is a complete nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
It's a logical and a semantic nonsense to require extraordinary proof for extraordinary claims. A claim is a claim. And a claim can be as far-fetched as it wants to be. It requires the same level of proof as any other claim.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter because you already have prejudged it as extraordinary because it doesn't fit with your worldview. Right? So let's be very clear what we're talking about here.
And I'm going to also state that any proof that substantiates any claim as an ordinary claim to an ordinary proof, satisfaction, just because you're calling it extraordinary claim, then the proof that it's ordinary that I'm using to prove it would then to you be extraordinary evidence.
Yeah.
You're just making a song and dance out of it. It's totally ridiculous.
You would still not believe it. Because it doesn't matter what I say to you. If I provide you, all the proof that you would ever ask for, you would still not believe it.
Because there's enough proof already out there that there is something going on. Whether or not you want to believe it or whether or not you saw it or not, it's irrelevant.
It is absolutely irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
Reality will persist in its existence, much to your chagrin, I should imagine. So those are the two. Then the third theme that we're seeing is around AI. And that's a big one right now, huge. And it is around the dangers of AI, the pitfalls, the challenges. I mean, this is what I find quite. Is this a red herring? I don't know, but they're talking about extinction level events.
Yeah.
So this AI could lead to our extinction. Now,
that's right.
And more so, they say, than any pandemic, and I'm quoting, more so than any pandemic or nuclear war.
Yeah.
Now, I don't disagree with the general sentiment because I happen to believe that, look, I get it. It makes sense, and I understand what you're saying. But it's just bubbling up to the top. Now, it's just bubbling up to the top now. So those three, and then there's another one. It's an undercurrent, a little, where we're moving into a more autocratic society overall. There's fairly significant political instability, but you see it across the globe. And it doesn't matter which spectrum of politics you belong to. Most countries are now in a state of flux, in a state of uncertainty, in a state of political division. The latest one of which, of course, is Turkey, where Erdogan was once again brought into power, dividing the country almost down the middle. So we have a lot of nations in the world that are politically divided, and quite deeply as well. So those are the three main, and then the fourth, somewhat lesser undercurrent of the things we're seeing at the moment. And to me, those are fairly significant bubbles to pop the surface of our global soup. I mean, AI, disclosure, or the admission of the existence of phenomena we can't explain at all, have no idea about. And then, of course, the crisis points that are coming our way. And then these crisis points are, like I said, natural, man-made, economic, otherwise it doesn't really matter, but they're all coming to a head. Yeah. I mean, how much longer, Dave, can we afford to buy anything, really, to be honest? Right? How much longer can we live the way we do? Then you got climate change, which is going to make it worse, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Electric cars do nothing, just
correct. Yeah.
In fact, they probably make it worse. So, but those are the things that are bubbling to the surface, in my mind. There's something, Dave, that's shaping up to be. And the form to me is still a bit nebulous, a bit foggy, but it's getting clearer by the day of this. Because the thing is this: what happens, Dave, when things are uncertain? What do people want?
Certainty.
Bingo! That's what people want. They want certainty. How do you get certainty?
Stability.
Yeah. Create a
That's
stable
my
system.
first. This is a word game. I love it. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
And how do you do that? Well, I mean, I don't want to talk about the Great Reset too much, because the Great Reset is not an end. It's a tool
Mm-hmm.
to achieve certain ends, but we can see how this
Certain
tool,
ends. Control. Oh, did I say that out loud?
Hey, there you go. But control at an unprecedented level.
Mm-hmm.
So there have been empires that call themselves global. And probably the most successful of those from the global reach, you could argue, is the British Empire.
That's right.
Because it truly was spanning everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could argue that. It was there for a couple of hundred years. That's pretty neat. There have been empires that have lasted longer. There have been empires that controlled more people. There have been empires that controlled more resources. There have been empires that controlled more landmass. But from a global reach, and I'm talking about, the sun never setting.
Yes, that's
the
right.
British Empire really did.
From the known world, I'd say Rome.
Oh yeah.
Right. Because they had
100%.
both longevity and control, resources control. They did rather well from a known world perspective.
Yeah.
Until of course they all went mad.
Well, but we have never, at least in living memory, in living history, and in written history, we have never had a global empire that controlled either the entire planet or the vast majority of the planet. We've never had that.
It's possible that it did exist at one time,
sure.
from a higher, way above, but it would have appeared deity driven. That's what I think, because remember, they did disperse us all over the planet again and gave us new languages, so we couldn't talk to each other, right?
Well, I just since you mentioned it, what I think, we've discussed this before, but what I think happened, and this is going to take us a little bit off to the side, but important in context. The original language, I think, that we had, I don't know how far back we can reach here, but I do believe that we had telepathic capabilities. When I say telepathic capabilities, I'm not saying that we were thinking words at each other. Or it's like, hey Dave, I'm thinking at you. Can you hear me? And Dave says, yeah, receiving you loud and clear. Roger, Roger. Roger. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about actual telepathy in its truest definition, which is a transmission and reception of thoughts, feelings, concepts, emotions. So perfect communication, I want to call it. Right? You don't have to put something into words. Like, I don't have to explain, look, a square has got 4 equal sides, Dave, and this one happens to be red and it's about 3 centimeters long. But rather, I bite into an apple and Dave immediately knows what it's like for me to bite into an apple. That kind of communication.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you know
that, I think, go on.
It's also described by experiences that it's like a download. It isn't a phrase. It's not words. You get both the sensation, you get the imagery, and it's all connected together just the same way that you experience. So you're sharing an experience, really.
Yes. And you get the knowledge without ever fully understanding how you acquired it. It's just there. Now,
it would have been tremendous hunting.
I mean, imagine that. In fact, you know what? Maybe that's what people did in the olden days. And we find, again, there's no proof positive for this. However, there's anecdotal evidence that what we like to call primitive societies have rudimentary forms of telepathy that seems to aid them in their day-to-day tasks, including dream journeys, etc.
Yes.
So that seems to be a thing. Now, having said that, while we haven't had this ability now for a long time, it was taken away from us on purpose, and I think it was taken away, and then we were forced to use language, and then of course that's when the great division of all people happened, because the greatest division we all have is language. not being able to communicate with each other properly.
Yes.
And even sometimes, a gentleman I worked with for a little while, greatly admired him, but he said this one thing which will stick with me for the rest of my life. We're having a discussion, and we're just not getting anywhere. And he looked at us and he goes, "You're divided by a common language." That's the problem. So you might still speak the same language, but you talk right over each other and around each other and under each other and never get to an outcome, because while you're using the same words, they might mean different things to you.
Wow.
Look, just speaking the same language will not help you communicate effectively if you haven't agreed upon a proper phraseology. Anyway,
yes, I can totally agree.
Right. So here we are, though, Dave. Now, a global autocratic system,
yes,
could potentially ward off an AI threat, a threat from interdimensional or intergalactic invaders, stave off famine, interest rates, and finally tame the climate. Don't you think? Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah, it would. Crazy thoughts, but let's say that the Great Reset. I know we didn't want to talk about the Great. Just let's pretend tomorrow the Great Reset is full in swing. It is there. We're all. I feel like I'm playing D&D. I'm sitting here saying. So imagine if we're all participating in it willingly, and most of us have living wages, right? AI has now taken over the world. We have an autocracy, but an AI autocracy, greater than that of the dynastical, or even the stakeholder economy that they were devising, like children saying how they were going to rule the Lord of the Flies, right? And then an AI just trumps them. Not Donald Trump, but trumps them with its ability to control everything. That would be, to me, poetic justice, should that ever occur. But if we were able to live fulfilling lives, I mean, not where we're working for, like, call it the man with air quotes, but rather if we could participate in art and do things that better scientific research, bettered our people as a civilization, that would be, I think, the best thing that we could possibly do if the AI let us do that, of course. Oh, and by the way, I love the AI right now.
You're such a sweetie.
So, if that were going on as of tomorrow, I think however the AI determines is the best way of controlling all of us, all at once, in an autocratic sense, possibly in a new definition of how we should all get along, all be paid, all be fed, and certain ones of us are doing certain things. Maybe we're all doing certain things, but just little bits, right? Food is distributed across the world, or movements of people around, because of some societies can take more on and balance it out so that it's all, you probably have to apply to have, offspring. There'd be a control over the limit of people, I suspect, as well. Sustainability. The thing that I would see here is that it would be, like, Meki, you and I have talked about this, some form of, it's not socialism, it isn't communism, it is, I don't know, it's kind of like a prison world where we're all just told what to do. There isn't anyone above the decision-making process, and therefore it would be non-corruptible. If we take all of the greed and the corruption away from any system that you decide to make, it doesn't matter which one, any of them, then it would work better. We wouldn't have the inequality that we see in every one of the other systems. So if it's capitalism, the inequality is the poor. They don't get everything. Yeah, they may not be pedaling hard enough, but they're being taken advantage of, and they don't get the benefits of everybody. In socialism, it's all meant to be about the people, right? Everyone's kind of equal. we're all working to better ourselves, but then there's still all leaders and everyone above that who just make, just take the cream off the top. In every communist view, and I know that you've got a point on each one of these, there is abundant over-policing, overstretch of laws. There is trying to keep people all within control of a certain word, and whatever that word is basically not beaten into people, but people want to do it, they strive to do it, and there's indoctrination into it. You can't just walk into it and start doing it. It's quite hard, and there is a domination of that. Now, if there wasn't any of that, because the leadership themselves weren't fraught with greed, ego, like fraudulent activity, everything that corrupts them, the corruptibility. If that was all removed, maybe it would work.
Yes, and pink elephants shall roam through the sky freely.
Wow.
You're right, though.
I want to go for reprogramming already.
But the thing is this: if we got to that point, right, and we would no longer really, I don't think, be talking to human beings, because a certain level of self-interest and so forth is normal. What we should do, though, is ideally remove all the trappings of our resource-scarce society, mm-hmm. to at least eliminate some of those considerations for greed and corruption. Mm-hmm. By making things abundantly available to all. So while I don't think we can ever achieve perfection.
Like if we had replicators each, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Sure.
Replicators, we access the quantum form or 0 point energy for that matter, mm-hmm. For limitless and abundant and free energy, then that I can see these things coming to pass. Now, an AI, and I think that's probably your point, wouldn't have any of those trappings.
Let's hope not.
AI doesn't. And if we couldn't fathom the motivations of an AI, and an AI would be ineffable to us. Is that blasphemy? I'm not sure. But it certainly is true, because it comes from a different platform to us, from a different motivational outlook. It is not bound by evolution. I'm not saying that we are necessarily, but it's certainly it's. I want to say this is loaded, Dave. It is perfect in its inception. Okay, it doesn't hopefully have any of the hang-ups that we have, and it might be able to focus on pure learning and like, well, anything pure, really, to be honest with you, right? Motivations could potentially be pure. I'm not saying they will be, but there's a higher chance that they could be. But for human beings, that's a tall order. That's a tough ask. But we have to take away. If we wanted to achieve that kind of vision, you'd have to take all the children under the age of 5 and educate them away from their parents, away from their societies, in the same language, and at least break down the barriers of language, race, creed, ethnicity, etc.
Sounds like the Great Flood, Becky.
Yeah, sounds like
none of the adults survived the other side of the flood.
Start from scratch.
That's right.
Start from scratch. Look, and then you want to create a society where you don't have those competitive drives, because competition, while it might not be a bad thing overall, I guess as a concept, if you've got micro level competition just to stay alive, mm-hmm. that's not driving good behaviors.
No.
So, and that's where we are, though, right? It's a really interesting philosophical question. And are you willing to destroy 2 generations, or the perceived happiness
mm-hmm.
of 2 generations, in order to at least attempt to assure a better future? Now, that's a really tough question. That question that you have, would you torture to death a small innocent creature in the most horrible way if it guaranteed eternal happiness for everybody else? Don't know. Would you? You have to live with that knowledge.
That's right.
So would you? Could you?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are a number of those questions where you have to make a choice, an ethical choice.
And that is pure utilitarianism.
Yes.
Okay, what is the utility for the greatest possible people? Who will, or rather, how do we benefit most people most of the time? That's really, because right now we're benefiting the least people all of the time. That's what's going on now. Yeah, the least people are getting the most benefit all the time.
All the time.
The life that they are living is the life that you see in the movies. And what did I watch? I watched this movie. It was really, Guy Ritchie movie, Rooster Gare, with Stratham. It was actually a fun action movie, but one of the characters in there is a billionaire, a weapon stealer, and he's driving this car with a movie star, and he says to the movie star, "Do you think money makes you happy?" And the movie star goes, "Oh," and the billionaire goes, "Absolutely. I was poor before, and now I'm deliriously happy. Look at me. I'm loving every second of this." Right? Because again, the truth is this: life is about choices and options. And in our system of things, our economic system, the world we live in, unless you have wealth of some sort, your choices are severely limited. The options are almost non-existent. Okay? So in another economic system, it could be a different thing, right? But here, money will offer you. In fact, I will go so far as say money will save your life. Dave?
Yeah, that's totally true. That is so true. Hey, I just wanted to. Last thing I wanted to mention. I'm going to a quick aside here to the last 2 minutes. Did you know China has announced that it's going to be drilling the deepest hole on Earth?
I had not heard that. That's interesting.
Yeah, apparently it is going to, because the USA's deepest hole that they ever dug was 9.5 kilometers.
Yep.
You have to do the math conversion if you want it miles. 1.6 is the calculator. Russia made the Kola hole when it was 12.2.
Yeah, Russia was deep, yeah.
And they capped it off, and people who heard the moans and sighs within that hole, it sounded like the lost souls of the earth. Crazy.
That's really crazy.
China planned 11 kilometers, but they're really targeting 13 kilometers.
Yeah, I got it here on Vice News.
Yeah. So that's in the middle of the desert too. So there's really nothing to compete that's out there, and we've only got a minute. But Meki, I'm going to say, I found it in a YouTube thing from Gravitas, but then I found it all over the internet. You go through different layers, right? And what they're going to go down to Cretaceous stone, and through that, and hoping to get to the diamonds that are down there, because there's a whole layer of diamond.
Well, it's I mean, it's about heat and pressure. That's how diamonds are formed, right?
Yeah,
so deep enough, you should be able to find a whole bunch of that stuff. Now, of course, diamonds already are worthless because of the supply. The only reason they are worth something is because De Beers is bribing the Russians into keeping their stock together. But imagine if you got a whole layer of it, it'd be worth nothing.
That's exactly right. Diamonds for everybody, Meki.
Diamond fight.
All right, so that's the end of the first hour. We're coming back with The Unseen World, Part 1. Part 2.